Okay, so now we're going to work on a few more fraction computations. In particular, we're going to be working on multiplication, division, and subtraction with a common denominator. So you're going to find that multiplication and division are very, very similar. There's just one difference between them. But let's go ahead and start with multiplication. It's a little bit easier. So with multiplication, the sure way we can always do this is we can always, the rule for multiplication is you have to get into improper fraction or a numerator and a denominator. You don't want to be multiplying mixed numbers, and we'll show that in the last example here. But you just got to get into fraction form and multiply the top times the top, bottom times the bottom. So 3 times 2 is 6, 7 times 5 is 35. The next thing you have to do is you have to make sure that this doesn't reduce any further. You're gonna be expected to always find the reduced fraction. So if this guy can reduce any further, you have to reduce it. Let's think about the factors for 6. It's 2 times 3 or 1 times 6. 35 is just going to be 5 times 7. They don't have a common factor, so that means these don't reduce any further, so this is our final answer. Over here we have 5 times 7 over 12. So what do we actually do here? We don't, I told you over here we do top times tops and bottom times bottom. We don't have a bottom over here. Well, it's pretty simple. 5 over 5 is the exact same thing as saying 5 over 1. So now we do have a bottom. So we can go ahead and just do our calculation just like we did over here. 5 times 7 is 35 over 1 times 12. So again, we have to make sure that these don't reduce any further. We know that 5 times 7 equals 35, and there's 5 or 7 are not factors of 12, so this doesn't reduce any further, so we can leave it in improper fraction form. That's our answer. Over here, we have 2/3 times 9/4. Now here's where it can be really helpful to really know your multiplication really, really well. We'll go ahead and do it just like we did the other ones, top times top, bottom times bottom. We get 2 times 9 is 18 over 3 times 4, which is 12. Now do these reduce any further? They certainly do. We see that 6 is going to be the greatest common factor, or the biggest factor that both of these can be, that both of these have a factor of. So 3 times 6 gives us 18, and 2 times 6 gives us 12. We see the 6 cancels out to reduce, and we're left with 3 halves. And this is reduced at our final answer. Another way we could have done this is we could have noticed right away that we use what's called cross multiplication to help us simplify before we compute, and it really makes the problem easier. We know that 2 and 4 share a common factor of 2. So if we divide both of these things by 2, 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, so we can cross that out and put a 1. 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2, so cross that out and put a 2 here. Now we also see that 3 and 9 share a common factor of 3, so 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1. 9 divided by 3 is equal to 3. So if we now look what we have 1 times 3 over 1 times 2. And we can just go ahead and compute that. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. And we end up with our final answer in many less steps than we did before. So the cross multiplication is really, really helpful to use. Now we get to improper fraction. The first thing we're going to want, mixed number multiplication. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and make this into an improper fraction. And we do that, again, by putting a multiplication and an addition. Multiplication, addition. So this becomes 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2 is 11 thirds times 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5 fourths. Let's go ahead and check for cross multiplication to see if we can do any. 3 and 5 don't share anything, so we can't simplify there. 11 and 4 don't share any factors, so we can't simplify there. So let's just go ahead and multiply across now. 11 times 5 is 55, and 3 times 4 is 12. And we know this doesn't reduce any further because our cross multiplication, there was nothing that we could reduce there. So 55 over 12 is our final answer in improper fraction form. Now we're going to go to division. Division is going to be really, really simple. All we have to do is look at the division sign, and when we rewrite this guy, we get the second number and flip it and turn it into multiplication. So we change the division into multiplication and flip the second number. Instead of 7 over 15, it's 15 over 7. Now we just multiply. So when we multiply, we see we can cancel these out. 3 and 15 share a common factor of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And now we can multiply across. 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 7 is 7. So here's our final answer, 10 over 7. Again, we know that 5 is the same thing as 5 over 1. Let's go and rewrite this with multiplication. We know that we just have to flip that second number, only the second number, times 1 over 5. We know we can't cross multiply here or here because they don't share any common factors. Now let's multiply across. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 5 is 20. And this does not reduce any further because we simplified in cross multiplication, and we are done. The last thing here is a combination of everything we've done so far. Let's just change these into improper fractions, flip the second one, cross multiply if we can, and then compute. So 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19 over 4. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, divided by 3 halves. Now we got to go ahead and flip the second one, change it to multiplication. So we have 19 over 4 times 2 over 3. We see we can reduce because 2 and 4 share a common factor of 2. That goes to 1. 2 goes into 4 2 times. Now we just have 19 times 1, which is 19. And 2 times 3, which is 6. And this doesn't reduce any further. And that's our final answer in improper fraction form. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to just subtract with a common denominator. Common denominator means these denominators, the number on the bottom of these fractions, is equal. That means they're in common. So let's go ahead and calculate this out. The number one rule for addition and subtraction is you have to have a common denominator or you can't perform the calculation. So we look at these guys and let's see if it passes the test. We have 11 on the bottom here, 11 on the bottom here. Yes, it's equal. So our answer is actually going to have just an 11 on the bottom. So we've done the bottom part. Now we go to the top and we just have to add or perform the operation that tells us to. 3 plus 4, 7. Do these reduce any further? No, because these are both prime numbers. So we are done. 7/11 is our final answer. Over here, again, we have to make sure they have a common denominator. 12 over here, 12 over here, good. So our answer is, of course, going to be 12. Now we just have to subtract. 11 minus 5 is 6. Now do these reduce any further? Yes. We know that they both have a factor of 6. 6 goes into 6 one time. 6 goes into 12 2 times. So 1/2 is our final answer there. Again, you have to always make sure and reduce to the lowest form. Here we go ahead and just change to improper fraction, times and plus. That's 21/4 minus 8/11/4. And that's going to give us 10/4. And I'm actually going to go ahead and stop now. There's a limit on the time limit we can use here, but this is going to actually reduce to 5/2. Go ahead and look at the book for further explanation, but 21 minus 11 is 20, or is 10. They'll carry the 4 across, reduce that to 5/2, and that's your final answer. Go ahead and do the problems in this section, and good luck.